All right, so here we go. To start with, let's talk about how long has life been on this planet? How long has this planet been here? And how long has pretty much everything been here? Modern science, as far as we know, universe is about 13.8 billion years old. That's a tremendous number. It probably means very little to you because it is so large. You've never seen a billion of anything, okay? Well, you probably have. You've probably seen a billion oxygen molecules, right? But you can't see, you don't know that you're seeing them. They're there, but you don't see them. The planet, good old Earth, is about no, that's wrong. No, that's right. Wait. 4.5 billion years old. All right, so there was no Earth for a very long time in the universe. All right, we didn't form until pretty recently. And then life on the planet, as far as we have been able to tell, is about 500 million years ago. Okay, so what's another term for 500 million? 500 million years ago. Humongous number, okay? Essentially, if just the planet was a 10-story building, okay, humans would be around, like, we'd just be the dust at the very, very top of the building, okay? And life would begin, let's say 4.5 billion, this is 10, about here. Okay, we'd be on like the 7th story before life even began on the planet. There was a lot of rock and water here for a very long time, a lot of water especially. All life, that's something else you need to know, all life began where? In the ocean. Why? Because that's what our planet is covered in, right? There are land masses and things, and they've been moving around. We've got tectonic plate theory and all that. But we had water, we had a lot of it, and it's just much easier to live in water than it is to live above. Now you say, well, not for us, right? We're very specialized, right? We have lungs, we have things that something like a sponge doesn't. So we're gonna start talking about sponges. That's gonna be our first thing. Can I get rid of this? Do you guys have this? I like numbers, so we'll probably ask questions on that at times, okay? I'll leave that up for a minute. So the first thing we're going to talk about, we're still in Kingdom Animalia. And the next step is the phylum, right? King Philip. We're going to be working on Phylum Porifera. Porifera means pore bearing. These things have pores. Well, so do you. All right. Anybody ever used any like pore refining lotion or anything like that to shrink your pores, right? A pore is just an opening or a hole. Phylum Porifera, they're full of holes. They're mainly holes, okay? And these again are our sponges. One of the very simplest animals, okay? We had bacteria long before we had sponges. These are, compared to a sponge, these are evolutionarily like way above sponges, right? Or way above bacteria, but they are still very low on the animal totem pole, okay? All right, they are multicellular. That's something that's good to know about them. So we are beyond single cells right now. They're multicellular. They're also what we call sessile, S-E-S-S-I-L-E. Sessile means they don't move. Okay, we talked about how some of you guys were like, well, it's an animal, right? So it's got to move. That was like the first week of school, right? It's animals move. Not all of them. These guys do not. The only way they move is if the water carries them. They're very lazy animals, all right? They're very simple animals. But again, it's not that all the ones on the earth are, you know, 500 million years old. There's brand new sponges being born all the time, but they've not had the need to change very much. They haven't evolved very much. Why? Because it's really easy to live in the ocean. Water carries your food to you. It carries your wastes away. It carries your sperm to the females, right? We're going to talk about that here with these guys. They don't have to do anything. They just kind of sit there and let things happen, okay? I'm going to get rid of this. Is that cool? Okay. Okay, so they're sessile. They don't move. They are marine. We talked about how they're in the ocean. They like salt water, but we also do have freshwater ones. So they can be marine or fresh. They can be cold water or warm water. Okay, in the video, it talked about how they can be in the Arctic, they can be in the tropics. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean we're going to take one out of the Arctic where it's very, very cold and drop it in the tropics and it's going to be happy. It will die. But they can live in any of those niches. Okay, they are filter feeders. Which means they take water in and they spit it out and they strain food as it goes. Okay? And they have the barrel ones. I'm going to draw a barrel one because they're kind of easy to work with. Okay, so a barrel sponge, they put the dye down here, right? And it starts shooting the dye out the top. What they're doing is they're pulling water in and then spitting it back out. What are they doing all along the way? Any food, which in their case is like bacteria and other very small, you know, phytoplankton, things like that. They've got cells that are pulling that out of the water, just kicking the water back out. All right. There are a couple structures you need to know. That top one, that main hole, is what's called an osculum. Okay. Now, if you need to, if you're like, I'm taking these down in my MacBook, and how am I going to put this picture in there? Okay. You don't need to. Go to Google, find a really good diagram of a sponge. They will have better ones than my hand-drawn one. Put that in there. Just drop it in. Okay. So the osculum is the top opening. And they also have choanocytes. Okay, all along the way. So if we kind of blow up what they've got here and we look at it, they've got the cells look somewhat like that. What they're doing is they are whipping the water, and they're what actually sets up the flow through the animal. Okay? They create a current. Now, this little whip-like structure, right, is called a flagellum, or if we have more than one, we have flagella. Okay? That should be something that you guys should have seen at some point, probably in, I don't know, 5th, 6th grade, maybe. You probably learned what a flagellum is. Okay, you maybe know what cilia are. They're the little hair-like ones. This is the longer whip-like structure. So choanocyte, let's break that up. This part's Greek, and it means funnel. This part is Latin. It means cells. Okay, anytime you see cytes, if we have an oncocyte, that's a cancer cell. Okay, leukocyte, it's a yellow cell. And flagellum means whip or to whip, flagellate, to whip something, and that is Latin. So if you want to put that in your list of translations, you sure can. You're going to need to know what a flagellum is. You'll need to know site because we're going to use that quite often. Choano, it's a weird word, right? It's probably a good one to know. Okay. We're good on that, pretty much. If I get rid of this on this side, is that cool? Okay. So let's talk about sex. My gosh, we just got into animals. How are we going to do that? Well, okay, these guys can reproduce two ways, either sexually or asexually. Okay? Sexually, recall that is a sperm and an egg. All right? These guys, we have a big barrel type sponge. The male produces sperm inside the chamber and just lets the water carry the sperm out. They are super duper lazy, okay? They don't go looking for anybody. They're not on sponge Tinder. They just release it to the water and it goes, okay? Maybe somewhere it's going to find a cute little female sponge who has eggs inside of her. And it'll get pulled through and the sperm goes to the egg. And we get baby ones, okay? They actually kick out, they're called larvae or larvae if there's more than one, okay? They float. They get pulled along in the water just like their mommies and daddies did until they find a substrate, maybe the dirt, maybe you know, the sandy bottom or the rocks or whatever, and they stick, and that's where they live forever, and they grow up to be big and strong barrel sponges, okay? They don't expend any energy very much, okay? The only thing that really does anything energetic in this animal is the choanocytes and the flagellum. They need energy to be able to do that. They need energy to be able to produce sperm and eggs and things like that, but they aren't doing much, guys, okay? You've heard of pet rocks. These are kind of along the same lines. They don't do a lot. Asexually, okay, so this is all sexual. Asexual can do a thing called fragmentation. Okay, it fragments off. If I cut a chunk off of this sponge right here, and it floats around until it finds a good rock to stick to, and it goes ahead and sticks, it will go ahead and grow an entire new organism, right? It will go ahead and they heal much better than we do. We don't fragment very well, okay? Typically, the more advanced an animal is, the less it will fragment and live, okay? We don't do well with it, right? If I cut off a finger, it's not going to go find some place to live and then grow a whole new clone of myself, right? We don't do well with that. These guys, extremely simple animals, they can do some really neat things that humans can't do, right? Have we mentioned anything about a brain in these? No, they don't have one. They're so simple, there's no brain. Have we said anything about muscles or nerves of any kind? Nope. How about hearts? Nope. They don't need a heart. What does our heart do? It pumps things, right? It pumps the blood through our bodies. It helps to, you know, move the stuff through. These guys don't even need it because all they have and all they need, they got a lot of ocean current, and then they've got the little cells that are helping to flagellate and whip the water through, okay? The very last thing that we're going to cover on them is very, very quick and very easy. They don't have much for predators. Not many predators. Okay, there's not a lot of nutritional value to these things. They're really not worth eating. Okay, there are some turtles that'll eat them. There's some things that'll eat them, you know, crabs, shrimp, things like that. Usually something relatively small, or it's got to eat a whole bunch of them. There's just not much in there. And some of them do have what are called spicules, Looks like spike, right? That's because it is made of glass, essentially. These guys can make glass. Okay, the glass forms inside them, essentially, and they have skeletons that sometimes have spikes. They're almost microscopic. There are different types of sponges. Some of them will kind of crunch. They're the glassy ones. Some of them are just like they're made out of a, you know, they're more cartilaginous almost. Okay, they're kind of rubbery. All right. I guess okay. There's two things. Last thing is Spongebob, and I'm not going to draw him very well. Synthetic. How do I know? Look at the shape of him. Okay. Do natural sponges, are they nice and square panted? No, okay? They're usually maybe a barrel shape or maybe a pipe shape, okay? Or usually sometimes just kind of a weird amorphous blob, all right? Taught this last year talking about how Spongebob is a synthetic sponge, which is what we use now to wash things with. They used to go out and harvest these guys. That was the whole part of that first video, right? Or the first part of the video. They go out and harvest the natural ones, but then as technology advanced, we can make them. We don't have to go hunting these things. Not that it's any big deal. We're probably not going to cause them to be terribly extinct. Maybe in certain areas, if we over sponge them, can't really overfish something that's not a fish, right? But if we over pick them, but somebody did point out to me that SpongeBob's parents are natural sponges. He has a picture in at least one of the episodes. Mom and Dad are behind him, and they are lumpy, right? They don't look like him. So SpongeBob was adopted. All right. I don't know how any of it works. I'm not a huge SpongeBob guy. Okay, it came out when I was an adult, so I didn't really sit there and watch it. My niece and nephews could fill you in on every episode. I'm sure you guys can too. But anyway. That's where we're at on sponges. I'm going to stop the recording